Yes, hello. We are back with another episode of Kaiju Carl's Coffee Corner. Alliteration. And
Here, man. Good to be here.
good to be back. I am once again sipping on some hot coffee. That's
Got this new
water is overrated.
Arabica blend.
Mm-hmm.
This is a bougie coffee called from the Starbucks Cafe.
Okay.
Starbucks.
What is that?
Yeah, you ever
Where?
heard of it?
What is that?
Starbucks.
Oh, gotcha.
That's how you pronounce it in bougie world, right?
I have the Giant brand.
Giant.
Blend. Yeah, from
Giant.
the foreign land of Giant.
It's quite good. It's quite
Yeah.
good. It's very fresh. very fresh.
Espresso from the land of Giant.
Giant?
Yeah.
I've been there a few times.
Yeah, it's an interesting place. Gets
Yeah,
a little
yeah.
weird sometimes, but
Starbucks
people are fine.
They definitely like to blend their little special spices and stuff in it.
Yeah.
But the one time I had a chocolate one, and I
Okay.
hate that shit.
The Starbucks dialect is quite interesting.
Yes.
It's English, but not at the same time. There's
It's-
definitely heavy influence.
Fratalian, I've heard it
yeah.
say. It's Fratalian.
Italian. Perfect.
Starbucks.
Starbucks and Giant. Oh my goodness. We today are going to be talking about something, since we kind of put you in the hot seat last time. I said
Yeah,
I would
man.
kind of jump in the hot seat a little bit
I
here.
appreciate that, though.
Yeah.
You know. But to be fair, this is more of an equal ground for us.
Yeah.
Because the other day we really like to get into stuff that we have passions about, and for some reason, over the years, because of Toku, and I wanna emphasize that my passion for Toku superseded my passion for something that's very crucial in Toku, and realizing how much it's in Toku, I now realize how much I've always loved this shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. And it's the topic at hand we're going to be talking about is martial arts and
Yes.
martial arts in TV shows and movies and video games and all that kind of stuff, and just the core idea of martial arts. And it's honestly something that we kind of bonded over in the beginning.
Yeah.
You know, like that's kind of like how we became friends before even the Toku stuff.
Legit. Legit.
You know, it was that and fighting games and all that kind of stuff. So like it's always been a core of our relationship and just our lives in general. Like your father is a boxing coach.
Yeah, my philosophy, my whole world revolved around combat sports and physical activity. And the one thing that I was differentiated from, and I saw from it, was the philosophy behind it.
Yeah.
My father is an excellent guy, you know, great trainer, great fighter. But he's so focused on the boxing aspect that when I introduced him to mixed martial arts, he couldn't quite understand it. And, you know, before getting into mixed martial arts as a combat sport, I was watching movies, bro.
Yeah.
I mean, we grew up watching all the martial arts movies, and that spark triggered that passion, which developed into my later years, the philosophy that I live by.
Mm-hmm.
From martial arts, and it's not to say that I'm some kind of fucking warrior. I'm just you don't have to practice to understand what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
So,
Did you ever do any formal training other than like with your dad?
I mean, I had to do the boxing growing up,
Yeah.
and that established in me the physical discipline.
Mm-hmm.
But the one thing that I don't like getting punched in the face. So like legit, I not even in a sparring when it's for fun. Oh, you're my friend. No, now you have to die. So like, but it was more just I wasn't comfortable actually getting socked.
Yeah.
Because I'm the kind of guy where if I can give you my best shot and you're not going down, I'm gonna throw a table at you. I'm gonna hit you with the board that's behind. You know what I mean? Like I'm not above.
Do what you
smashing
gotta
everything over
do
your
for
head.
the W.
Because I took something from perhaps the most influential guy we've ever come across, which is Master Lee, Bruce Lee. His very philosophy is something that I've always indoctrinated myself to follow, because it's more than just martial arts. It is a life philosophy that you can use. It's life comes at you in all different ways, and if you're rigid, you're set, you're solid, you will be overwhelmed and overcome by things that come your way. And it ties into fighting. his famous quote that is always my favorite is be formless, shapeless like water. That quote is
Put water in a cup, it becomes the cup.
You
Put
put
water
it
in
in
a
a bottle,
pot,
it
it
becomes a
becomes a
bottle.
I
Put it
love
in a
that
teapot,
clip.
it becomes the teapot. Now water can flow or it can crash. Be
So
water, my
iconic.
friend.
It was so
So
good.
thinking of that throughout my entire life since the very first time I heard it, I was like, that's it.
Yeah.
So playing fighting games when I was younger, I think the very first fighting game I legit remember playing is the Street Fighter 2.
Okay.
That's for the Sega.
Yeah.
Because for Nintendo, I think I only had like the RPG games, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But when I played Street Fighter for the first time, I knew I picked Ryu just because I liked the way he looked.
Karate Man, of
But
course.
yeah, the karate Shoto, but I didn't realize the archetypes, and every fighting game has archetypes,
Yep.
It's kind of like a steady thing that is an established expectation. And to be shameless, my dear friend, you made a video not too long ago
Yeah.
about the idea of how to discover your fighting game passion.
Yeah.
And in that very thing, you mentioned archetypes. So picking Ryu obviously is something that most people who don't know fighting games would do just based off of aesthetics, don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that's kind of the whole like energy of the video. How do you get into a fighting game? You hit play. That's how you hit start.
Yeah.
And it when it comes to archetypes and aesthetics and things, that's usually how I pick them. Strictly aesthetic, it's usually my punch women or my edgelords, that kind of thing. Those are my two archetypes that I go with.
Characters like Yamazaki are always the most interesting because they present the most dynamic moveset.
Yeah.
But aesthetically too, he's dope as shit. To
Yeah,
look at,
he's got
you know
that.
what I mean?
He's got that crazy drip going on, And yeah, Yamazaki's one of my favorites. And he's, in terms of archetypes, he's a very weird character. Like he's not really a Shoto. He's like a pseudo grappler kind of thing. It's usually almost always purely aesthetic, whether it's the moves or the character design themselves. I don't know. They have to click on some kind of level for me, and that's usually how I personally pick. But
Yamazaki is one end, but then we're talking spectrums like Valdo or Yoshimitsu.
Yeah, of those two, Yoshimitsu was definitely more my style.
Right.
The crazed sex demon wheel is not really my thing. He's a cool character. I think he's great. Yeah, Valdo's amazing. I spoke briefly in the last episode of my history of Soul Calibur.
Yes.
And Valdo is always one of those like, do I want to take that leap? Do I want to go into that darkness? I don't think so. Nightmare come unto me. That's where I am.
Right. Yeah. And it's the same. It's the same idea that you because of the expectation of your aesthetic, you also tend to discover your fighting style.
Yeah.
I'm not much of a charge style. I'm not much of a zoner. I don't like that kind of approach.
Yeah.
But when it comes to, we're just gonna get on fighting games for a bit.
We'll get back to the martial arts stuff, but fighting games.
Fighting game. The idea of discovering your fighting style. I don't want to undersell that because when you find your character, when you find that character that you mesh with, that is like, you're like, yo, this is like an extension of myself.
Yeah.
That's the most important thing that I look for in every fighting game. And I've only ever found it twice. In Tekken, I found it with Jin. And then
which Jin?
Well, that's the thing. The Jin in Tekken 5, I say, is
so
best
like
Jin.
More modern Jin, not necessarily Tekken 3 Jin.
Yeah. Post Tekken 4, you know what I mean? Tekken 4 Jin is so damn overpowered, it's ridiculous. I stopped using him because it just became unfair.
Brain dead.
Yeah, the double chamber punch took like what 30% of your life bar? Like Jesus. I get it. Imagine getting popped with that. Like and it's a chest punch, right? You're getting socked in the chest.
Yeah, it's just right in the solar plex, like too big. Whop whop. That's all it is.
That's the thing. All right. So of martial arts, I've always liked the power that karate presents. That's why I always liked Jin. Myself, I always found myself if I were to embody a fighter, it would be closer to Kazuya style, which is
Raw
power,
power.
power.
Yeah.
Like I love the idea of hitting you once, watching you buckle, and then waiting for another opportunity to do the same thing again. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so of my favorite fighters to use, Kazuya's power style has always been the best. That one movie has, the Lion Tamer.
Mhm.
Remember that one? It's basically a elbow smash that he brings all the way down.
Okay. Is that where he brings the foot back and then drops it? Like, he goes back on one leg?
It's more of an elbow strike,
Okay.
but it's basically he comes straight down, right? But the animation of that move impressed me when they, because he didn't have it in Tekken 4, he didn't have it in 5, I don't think.
Yeah.
But when they gave it to him in 6, oh my god, the animations that he had in 6 made me, I got so excited. I'm like, dude, this is the Kazuya I want. Finally, we're gonna get a doper Kazuya with a couple more combos. Because the problem with using Kazuya is, as much as my fighting style is to adapt, and I don't like juggling. You know that. I hate it.
Yeah.
I hate the idea of picking up a fighting game, learning this 16 hit combo, and then just practicing popping it.
Yeah.
You know, it's not fighting. You're just waiting, you know? And I get that that's how people win tournaments, and I get that that's how, I don't know. Maybe you can explain it better to me. I've never understood the mentality.
You prefer fundamentals over long
Correct.
combos.
Correct.
That's what you prefer. In fighting game terms, you prefer fundamentals, you prefer footsies to actual like long ass Marvel style combos.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
And maybe I'm in the minority, but it really feels like when you do that to a fighting game, you're obviously exploiting something that is designed. Obviously, I know they're designed to do that.
Yeah.
But they're only designed to do that because of a fuck up that Street Fighter made 25 years ago. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
So when you think about it, fighting games were supposed to be fundamentals.
Yeah.
But we have what we have now.
Yeah. And I mean, fighting games as a genre, the nice thing about them is that they have, you know, it's gone from there's Street Fighter 2, there's Mortal Kombat 2, now we have this huge family tree that splinters off into 10 different million styles. That literally there's a fighting game for anyone if you just explore them a little bit. And that's kind of what I like. Yeah. Like, and you know, in terms of archetypes that I prefer, and you know, I think it's honestly okay to say my style has evolved over the years. It used to be sort of similar to like the Powerhouse, but it was more of just the aggression, right? Like it Shoto's sort of, but it was the Akumas. Like Akuma is my character. Terry Bogard, you know, the guys who can just pop off when they need to.
Right. Yeah.
And I would say over the last 5-6 years or so, I've gone more to pacing control. That's the style I like to set the pace. So it's,
you mean with the same characters but a different
sometimes technique? Yes. Like I play Akuma in Street Fighter 4 much differently than you're supposed to play Akuma. He's supposed to be
not a million Gokens and Tatsushins.
No, but that's kind of what evolved into Goken, because he can pop off, but he's more of that pace controlling style of Akuma. Akuma is a vortex character. That means he sets up for wake ups and he just goes nuts and he gives you 50-50 options, that kind of stuff. Goken is more slowed down, more subdued. He has power and he can do short, powerful combos, but he can control the pace a little bit easier, especially with his angled things that would piss everyone off when we played. You know, he's got his angled Hadoukens that go up in the air as opposed to the air Hadoukens.
Amazing. That little addition to him is amazing. Like if Ryu did just two different things, you know.
and we might be getting to that point with Street Fighter 6. That's a whole other conversation. You know, the future of fighting games.
All right. I haven't heard anything about Street Fighter 6 other than that trailer that was announced.
That's all that's been out. That's all that's came out.
That's it?
Yep.
It's just
We've only just seen the trailer.
Ryu?
Yep. Luke and Ryu. That's it. So we'll see. Maybe when there's more, we can do an episode on that. Yeah. And then on top of that, like Space Control, it's kind of turned into grapplers, but not necessarily Zangief grapplers. This kind of started when Dragon Ball FighterZ came out, when 16, my boy 16, became a thing. And 16 is
pretty bird.
Yeah, 16 is a bulldog. So it's kind of like the grappler version of an Akuma style character.
I see.
He's meant to be aggressive and in your face and just kind of like bully you, right? And that kind of harkens back also to the pace control, because like if I'm in your face, I'm gonna make you make the decisions, kind of thing.
Right, like if you're constantly applying pressure to something, like I know I don't respond well to that. Like that's why I prefer. So if you were to charge at with a grapple character like that, I would automatically go with my character, Asuka. You know what I mean? Like a character who has counters. That's another one of my styles. I love countering, but I'm not an abusive counterer. There are dicks out there. Like,
they'll sit there and
you're
wait.
never going to hit me. You know what I mean? Like, no, I prefer to block. But if I see a punch that is open, I might. You know, it's. But a grappler is a scary motherfucker.
Yeah, like, because like, imagine.
You know what I had trouble with? I had trouble with fucking El Fuego. Like, El Fuego gave me an
from
issue.
Virtual Fighter?
No, El Fuerte. Sorry,
El Fuerte. Okay.
Yeah, my bad. El Fuerte.
El Fuerte. Yeah.
It was the Virtua Fighter one was the Rey Mysterio knockoff.
El Blaze. That's what it was.
El Blaze.
Yes.
Yeah. He was dope. I used him, but he was so weird.
He was weird.
Talk about chains. All right. Of all the fighting games, I never even nearly came close to being okay at Dead or Alive.
Nope.
I don't understand the fighting game at all.
Nope.
It is like the timing system is weird. The impacts are weird. Everything is weird.
Because it's like Tekken, but the weirdest possible version of Tekken. Like if Tekken became Virtual Fighter, that's DOA, and those are like the weirdest combinations of things ever. Because Virtual Fighter, I'm not good at either. So
I don't know. Virtual Fighter was okay. I used to use Jackie
Bryant.
Jackie Bryant. Yeah, I used to use Jackie Bryant and whoever the not Go. Oh my God, that's gonna bother me. Lei Fo? No, not Lei Fo.
I know who you're talking about. The old Shaolin dude.
Yeah, him. I used him.
Lei something. I just don't know.
Yeah.
Lei Fa?
Lei Fa? That sounds right.
Maybe? I don't know. We can figure it out. But for Virtual Fighter, I always, again, because Karate Boys, I use Jean, because 5 was really the only one I ever played. Jean was the newer Karate Boy that they added in that one.
Yeah, Shun-Di, the drunken guy. Shun-Di.
Oh, Shun-Di. Okay.
Yeah,
Drunken Fist. Got it.
Yeah. Which is another amazing fucking martial art.
Yeah, it is.
Oh my God. Like, you want to talk about a passion, just to spin off here? Jackie Chan is like, we can talk about the greats all day, but just to make it a point that Jackie Chan's Drunken Master movie was my all-time favorite movie for years until The Man from Nowhere. Because I loved everything about that movie, bro. Is like, obviously it's an homage, but it's done so well that the Jackie Chan's persona, Jackie Chan's energy is everything that I love about his movies. His movies are crap when you really think about it. Yeah. But legitimately, he and his team, because it's really when you want to pay tribute to Jackie Chan, I always want to mention that his crew are one of the most amazing crews around. They make him look so amazing because of what he does. So you can't have one without the other in my eyes. And I've made it a point to recognize the crew throughout his movies, so you can see the same faces over and over. It's a subtle thing for me, but anyway, the Drunken Fist style has always been one of my favorite fighting techniques because of the unpredictability of it, the postures that you can assume, but the energy that comes from every impact, especially the rolling fist punch. You're channeling all that energy from your core, from the base of your horse stance. You know, like you have to have the power in your legs to pull it up from your core to bring that fist back. You know, I love martial arts, dude.
And I think that kind of speaks to like where the whole energy of this episode is, because like it's very easy to get on a tangent with every little thing with this, because it just gets so exciting for all of it. And what I was getting to with the Bulldog Grappler thing, with the recent release of KOF 15, and he's not a new character, but it's kind of like, I don't know if you remember when you guys got me into Tekken, I always was very intimidated by King and wanted to learn King until I actually sat down and learned King.
Listen, and your King, and I'm gonna plug it here. Your King inspired me to get better with Heihachi, because I became predictable with Jin and Kazuya to you, that I'm like, okay, I need something better. I
went pretty hard with King for a while. Those skills are now lost, like most of our Tekken skills.
I mean, yeah, I'm no longer beautiful either, so I'm
but
pretty sure I would lose to the CPU, man. Like,
kind of in that same idea. We have the Team Ikari Warriors. There's just that whole team is fantastic. Leona, Ralph, and Clark. And Ralph's always been my dude because Punchman, Galactica Phantom is one of the coolest supers in any game ever. He's just a giant exploding haymaker. That's all it is. And
I mean, what else do you need?
Yeah, and it's unblockable in most of the games when you charge it all the way. So
really? Shit.
So if you charge it all the way, it's unblockable. You're not stopping it.
What's the charge like? Okay, if you're catching somebody with it,
it's a hot minute. Yeah, like if you get caught with a full charge, you deserve every HP point. It's Galactica Phantom.
Galactica.
Yeah, and I believe pretty much every one until KOF 15 it was unblockable fully charged.
Oh my god!
But Leona always caught my interest just because she's a Evangelion shill, and she's Orochi. She just looks cool, but like again, kind of like what you were saying, like charge characters aren't my thing, and she's a rush down charge character, which my brain does not.
How does that even work?
She's got big normals that you can do the charges in. My brain does not handle that well.
The technique is interesting to me. So, because I've seen people use Dalsim and I see people use Bison like fucking insane.
Yep.
And I'm like, how?
Yeah.
When you watch the sticks, it's literally like they have the timing like.
Yep. It's
muscle
built
memory
into them at that point. Yeah. And Leona takes that to like an nth degree. You got to work on, your big heavies and your heavy kicks and heavy punches and working the charges into those. Misuru, is that her name? In Persona 4 Arena, she was very similar. The one with the rapier. She's very similar. She's a charge character, but she's very like kind of rush down, get in your face, do things. So she didn't fit me as well, but because I love big punchmen, Clark was an obvious choice, and always kind of looked. But because he is this kind of complicated grappler who has an answer for literally everything in a grapple, I was always
God, does he?
Yeah, I was always a little intimidated by that, just similar to King. But in KOF 15, I took that dive, and he is the character that is anchoring me to this game. I
see.
I love Clark, and our boy Ken, who we play with a lot. He is terrified of my Clark. He is like, that is poison. Get it out of my face. And we all suck at the game. That's not the point. But like,
it's more the fun.
That's exactly that's the whole point of it. You got to have fun. And between armored grabs and frame one grabs and running grabs and modular grabs, he's just so much fun.
Grab?
So a modular grab is essentially a chain grab. When you grab, you have follow-ups, things like that. Very similar
like
to
King.
Yeah, like King, he can go into the death roll, King's Bridge, all that kind of stuff.
That fucking death roll.
I mean, again, if you get caught by it, you deserve every bit of it.
Yes, I got caught in it by the CPU one time, and it was the most horrifying because I had never seen it before until the CPU pulled it off on me, and I thought I was dead, which I basically was, because that shit munches.
It does
your
like
bar.
90% damage. It's absurd.
Munches your bar. I was, wow. Yeah. And it's literally just him rolling you on your neck for like 3 seconds. Like
that's it. But that's also not including the 5 grabs it takes to get to it.
True. Yeah.
So Clark has a similar game plan. He has a running spear, like a tackle that he can do, and then you can either he has a death cradle as well that you can do for like some quick damage, or you can do a follow-up where he drops you, throws you over, and then he'll do like an elbow drop kind of thing, like he'll do like a people's elbow almost.
I love it.
And then from the elbow you can go into super. Whether it's level 3 climax or your standard super, he can go into supers from there. So it's modular in that can be super cancelable. But then he also has that same grab he can the spinning double punch that Ralph and him have, the big like scoop punches. I don't know if you remember those. They do like the back fist and then spin into a scoop. He can do a grab out of that. I don't know if that's in the older games, but he can do that. He jumps up, grabs them, and tosses them the opposite direction. So if you're in the corner,
when you pop them, he goes after them.
He jumps up after them, and then he can throw them back. So like if you're stuck in a corner, you catch them with that. You can put them in the corner, and then pressure's on, baby.
I don't like your Clark.
It's gnarly. Clark is just a gnarly character, and that's not even including his super, where you have to watch it for like 10 seconds, where he grabs you, kind of like Rugal, takes you coast to coast. He just puts you on his shoulder, runs, power bomb, grabs you again, and then points the other direction, runs, and just power bombs again. He's had it since probably at least 2002. But I feel like they make it longer and more obnoxious every single game.
Oh my God.
It's ridiculous.
That's awesome.
Yeah, you just over your shoulder like a log. You're going over here. He's just so cool.
That's
and like Ralph, I think, has a cooler super. Like I said, Galactica Phantom will always hold near and dear to my heart. But Clark overall game, like minute to minute gameplay, I'm having much more fun with him than I did with Ralph in the last few years.
It plays into the ability to perform dynamic and to react and to adapt.
Yeah, and like
for me,
he's kind of just a bulldog too, and that's kind of what my style's turned into. Just like a bulldog grappler is kind of my
chase you down.
Yeah,
run your ass down.
Exactly, the Takuma run. That's what it is. Yeah, just the Takuma run at everyone. Yeah, and so I want to make you sweat when I'm coming at you. That's really the style I like, but it's not. I don't. But at the same time, it's not like a Rekka aggression. You know what I mean?
And which funny, I like Rekka too.
Yeah,
but I don't perform a Rekka like to the point where I'm banking on chip damage. You know what I mean? Like Kyo's Rekka style has fit me a lot. Hard to think of other Rekkas that fit me better than him. Iori's second.
Yeah, he is one. I wouldn't really call him a Rekka character, but he's got that one Rekka, you know.
Yeah, it's hard to say, but I mean, Kyo's moveset has been the best for me. Even though it's just another Rock, which is another character I play. You know what I mean? Like I guess I tend to play the same styles, but different ways with the different characters.
Angsty pro tag boys,
Yeah, I mean, Rock. To be fair, Rock's story I didn't even know about until I played Garo. Yep. So like, I was like, oh, that's dope. Oh, of course, he's MC, fucking whatever. Angsty boy number 7. He's the son of two dads.
Yeah, the son of two dads. Yeah. He's the son of the bad dad, just like your boy Jin. So
hey,
it's a whole ass archetype.
I fall right into it.
But I mean, and all this talk of fighting games, to bring it back to the martial arts again, it kind of like rooted itself in that. And like, I don't know if you remember really the first martial arts movie that kind of clicked for you.
Yes.
But I can't say it was the first one, but the one I remember, it kind of like in my, like, I was probably 10 at the time, brain, that it kind of like set in that, oh my God, I really love this, was Twin Warriors. It's also called Twin Brothers, I think. Jet Li. Jet Li Twin Warriors. So it was a
Jinbo and Junbo?
Yep. Chunpo and Jinbo.
Tai Chi.
Tai Chi Masters. Yes. That was the other title, I think.
That's what the other title was. Tai Chi Masters.
So that was a Jet Li movie about Jet Li and his boy growing up in the Shaolin Temple. They are
wow.
So his one friend is very, and I'm gonna, now that I'm thinking about it, trying to talk about it, it kind of leans back to my bulldog style.
Yeah.
His boy, you know, sees this master doing this technique and practicing by himself, and it's the forbidden technique that he's not supposed to know. And when they're taking their trial, you know, he starts stuff because he's aggressive and, you know, does this whole thing. But then he uses this technique on the master, and the master goes, "What are you doing? You're both expelled." And then this like huge fight breaks out, and it's kind of crazy. And it's very like wushu style Hong Kong cinema, where there's, you know, people flying around and all this kind of stuff. But like, my brain.
Oh my God, it's so good.
It's
the dust
so
kicks,
good. Yeah,
the dust kicks have always been my favorite thing about martial arts movies, bro.
Yeah,
if
and
there's
like
no dust kick, I'm like, no. Like, there's no power
at the
behind
time.
that.
I also didn't know this was like wire fu. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of like the running it through the air with the legs flying kind of thing. And then at one point as well, you know, with Junbo, I think that's the one who is kind of evil, the angry brother. He eventually goes off, joins the army, becomes a general because he's ruthless. He's conquering lands, and he becomes like a favored general kind of thing. And Jet Li's character is betrayed. He feels betrayed at one point. They fight, you know, he's broken. It shatters his mind. He comes back, and then eventually he learns Tai Chi by bouncing a ball in water. And this whole idea of like, this whole idea of this connection to nature, this kind of like universal energy almost, has always kind of spoke to me. And I think this is kind of where it all started, because he does that, he kind of feels it, and then he learns Tai Chi. And at one point he's standing in a field just kind of doing this kind of crazy hand stuff and creates like a ball of
leaves.
And then just like breaks it and it flies out everywhere and there's like a perfect circle around him and everything. I thought it was the coolest thing ever.
It's dope. That movie's dope, man.
The movie's so good.
Even just while I'm remembering the movie, and one of my favorite characters is the stupid one, that doctor that's always the old guy.
Yes.
He's the most ridiculous character, and he's funny in every scene. And I remember the dub. I don't think I've ever watched it in the original language.
I have not either. I may have like once, but it's always been the dub for me as well because we would rent it from West Coast and Hollywood Video and all that kind of stuff.
Two things that specifically come into my mind is because of the dub, because of the delivery of the line. What did he say? I'll beat you just like I used to beat you.
Yeah.
Jet Li goes, you'll find I'm quite different now.
Yep.
I found my fighting style.
Yep.
Tai Chi. And beats his fucking ass.
And he does the whole like belly wiggles, almost like the drunken fist kind of thing, and then like fires him back and stuff.
There's
like,
a moment where that's fucking so cool.
It's such a good movie, and like again because I was too young, like I was practicing martial arts at the time. I don't know if I ever told you I did martial arts for like 13 years. So I was training at the time. And like when I saw that, I was like, that's the kind of martial arts I want to learn. Like it was that, and it was, I forget. I think it's The Legend 2. It's another Jet Li movie. Jet Li was my dude. I think it's The Legend 2. But at one point, so this will, I guarantee, jog your memory. But he gets his like, as punishment for a crime or something, he gets his tendons cut on his leg, his wrists and ankles, and then he comes back. Yes, and then he comes back with the blindfold. He grabs all the swords. That whole hallway scene is phenomenal.
Look, Jet Li's movies have always been a different tier. Like his epics, always deliver. All of his epics are good.
That was my dude. Like I didn't even like Jackie Chan. I'd seen Rumble in the Bronx. Who Am I? All those kind of classics. But like it didn't. Martial arts movies didn't click for me until I learned about Jet Li. Like Jet Li has always been my dude. And then we can talk about that trash fire Forbidden Kingdom for a second.
Listen, and there's two things that came away from that movie. We got to see them fight, even if it was just a sparring match.
Yep.
And Jackie Chan's funny shit.
Yeah, and we got a cool little role reversal too. Like Jet Li ended up playing the kind of goofy character, which was interesting to see. It was kind of cool.
Sun Wukong has always been one of our favorite mythological characters, and to have Jet Li play him was dope as shit. So yeah. I
also despised it at first when that movie first came out. I was like, "What are you doing?" That
movie's terrible.
What are you doing to my boy?
Movie, I hate movies in general. Yeah. If they're bad, but when they're offensive, that's just too much. Like that movie pissed me off on levels that I can't even express. One, they shit all over the idea of martial arts. They don't even really treat it with respect. They have Jackie Chan and Jet Li there, and yes, they're basing the mythological thing, but honestly, you had two of the greatest martial artists of all time. Let them make the movie. You know what I mean? Let them do it.
And like, nowadays we have movies that are like clearly made for like the world release, like outside America release. Like we have, the Meg, stuff like that. I feel like this was kind of like where I don't want to say it started here, but like this is the first one I can think of that felt like it was made for like a world release, a world cinema kind of thing.
It should have been.
Yeah, and like it is what it is. That's a movie by movie thing. Like that's not a blanket like negative thing. It's just that I putting it into that category of like, this was clearly made to make money overseas because CGI's big crazy CGI budgets and that kind of stuff.
The Around the World in 80 Days type of thing.
Yeah, like it just felt like that kind of energy looking back on it, and I don't think that was. I mean, it probably was a thing because the business hasn't changed that much. It feels like that kind of movie now, and again, it is what it is. But like, go ahead.
Fist of Legend.
Okay, that's a good one. That's a real good one.
Remake of my first favorite movie,
Fist of Fury. Yeah.
So. My first favorite movie growing up, my first memory was Fist of Fury.
Okay.
Before Enter the Dragon, to be fair. Fist of Fury I saw first, then I saw Enter the Dragon. And then Enter the Dragon changed my whole life.
Yeah. But as it did for most people, I think.
But the Jet Li Fist of Legend remake, seen that years later, I remember I watched it at a friend's house the first time. He was like, "Hey, did you see this movie?" Never saw it before. I borrowed that movie and I never gave it back.
Yep.
I was
That's what you
like,
do.
this is mine now. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I love you, but this is mine now.
Yeah. No, I had, just training at the time. I would talk to my instructor, and I was, assisting teaching and things like that. We would talk about these kind of movies all the time, and that was the one they had introduced me to Jet Li. And this was one of the ones that they had recommended after I was like, oh, Twin Warriors or Tai Chi Masters. Like, this one's great. And then it was Fist of Legend. And I distinctly remember the fight with the dad where that is like the moment, that and the sparring match where he first comes back and he's like, Kung Fu's great, but I also learned a little bit of Western boxing and things like this. And he kind of combines it. And
it really, it again, because it ties into the idea that staying in one move, because as you see in the movie, to preach the gospel, he adapts to his opponents to defeat them. And the one time he's defeated, his opponent adapted to him. So it's that ideology that I love so much.
And that's kind of what he represents in that movie, right? Like, it's, he's going up a bunch of traditionalists, and the entire idea is that he comes in and goes, hey, like, maybe this isn't the end all be all. And that is a very common thing. And, not to get into a political thing, because I don't really care.
Yeah, because it's based in.
The Communist Party in China is trying to push like Kung Fu for everything, this, that, and the other. They're basically using
trying to make it like they're trying to make it a national thing.
Yeah, and like, that's fine. It's fine to have pride and whatever, but like, that's not what martial arts is to me, so I'm just not even going to touch that subject. But
it's not strictly Chinese. It's born in China.
Yeah,
yes,
like,
absolutely.
Martial arts are a universal thing. It's a universal language. You know what I mean? Like, it's the same kind of thing when you go into a fighting game, which is partly why I love them as well. Like, there's a reason why we use the number pad to talk about motions a lot of the times, like 246 or 216, or 214, I should say. There's a reason why you use those. It's because any language can recognize that, as opposed to like quarter circle forward, quarter circle back, that kind of thing. And this is the same thing with martial arts. It's a universal language. Like, we have people competing on a world circuit all the time who have the utmost respect for each other and understand each other because they are in the same situation. They are both consenting adults that are here for, and I want to clarify, like, I don't think martial arts are violence. Violence is, a fight. That is, an emotional reaction, essentially. That's not the same as.
What is your take on mixed martial arts then?
So mixed martial arts, I respect, because I think it's it's a fighting system. It is a system designed to take the best pieces of everything, put it together. That's not my preferred thing, because I like the idea of styles, and in that sense I like it because it's its own style now at this point. And taking in the sense of like a competitive sport, I think it's probably the best you can do, because it's gonna cherry pick the best things out of stuff. You know what I mean? As a traditionalist martial arts kind of thing, it's, I'm like, oh yeah, that's mixed martial arts, that's neat, and it's over there. But I also find styles fascinating, like looking at different styles, and I think that's why I like the anime Baki so much, Baki Hanma, because that is the entire point of that show. It's, Dragon Ball is about a bunch of dudes who love to fight. They fight for this because they love to fight. Who
like to throw millions of punches at each other.
Yeah, like they fight because they love fighting. Like Baki, they fight because that is their core existence. They take a style and it becomes their livelihood. It becomes their soul. It becomes their everything. And it's cool to see, like, a lot of the characters don't have big, huge character arcs. Like, Baki really doesn't change as a person throughout the entire show, even though there's 400 something chapters.
He just likes,
he learns a new technique is what he learns. Yeah. He gets a girl. He becomes a man. Let's put it that way.
That's what he does.
And like, he'll learn different techniques throughout the show, but he doesn't really change as a fundamental character, right? Like, there's no big, like, he gets defeated and he watches his mom dies, and then he kind of comes back, but after he comes back, he really doesn't change in any way. He just kind of stays that kind of cocky, badass fighter through the whole thing. The shonen protagonist.
Because the whole show, the whole thing about that show is, like you said, it's a combo, because as much talking as there is, there's just as much action. Yeah. But the talking is about their philosophies. It's about trying to teach their opponents a lesson.
They'll pause in the middle of a fight to explain in crazy detail why they hold their fist a certain way.
My favorite,
they use a certain technique a certain way.
Did you like the Muhammad Ali little thing? Oh, like, even though it was annoying in terms of narrative. Yeah. But for the character development, for the things that they taught him, he was getting his ass kicked by these masters to teach him a lesson
Yeah.
about himself.
To literally humble himself.
He was so full of this, and it's weird because his style is actually one I prefer. The free style, the free punching, adapt to your opponent.
The boxing kempo.
Right, but it also plays into that idea where once you become this idea that I've got this, you're done.
Yeah.
You know? Like, you can't ever feel like that. You always respect who you encounter because the whole idea is to learn something from whoever you're fighting. You know?
Yeah, that particular arc is hilarious to me because to context for the show. So the show is on Netflix. It started in 2018. There's now 4 seasons, I think, and two separate shows. It's Baki and then Baki Son of Ogre, and I think they just call it Baki Hama on Netflix. Essentially, Muhammad Ali's son. I should say Ali, not Ali, because Muhammad Ali is a separate character in this universe. But Muhammad Ali is another boxing champion. And his son comes and says that I've perfected my father's boxing technique. Very similar boxing technique, light on the feet, outboxing kind of thing.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
So it's not like his technique is bad.
Junior perfected it to the point where he can handle any martial arts, or that's what he claims. Like, he perfected the technique. And everyone respects his father because the most powerful character in the world, Yujiro Hanma, Baki's father, says, I respected this man because he was one of the only people that could kind of go toe to toe with me. He just didn't have a complete martial art.
Right.
And, Junior says he completed it, and then he tries to go after Baki's girl, and then Baki says, hold on now, humble yourself, my friend. And he proceeds to get his ass beat for the next 3 episodes while every one of Baki's friends squares up with him. Yeah, it's kind of funny. But
some of the best episodes are where other characters fight each other. Like when the masters fight that one psychopath.
Yeah, and that's literally what I was about to say. Like, it's one of those things where, like, it keeps it interesting because it's almost like pro wrestling. Like, there's the build up to the match kind of thing. Like,
You're right. Yeah.
They do this crazy build up to the showdown, right? And especially in that death row inmate arc, they do this crazy build up, and then you have this fundamental, like, for example, going back to, Kung Fu and all that kind of stuff and that whole thing, there's a character named Retsu who is a master in Kung Fu. Like, he is a prodigy. He has been in this his whole life, and his whole thing is, your karate's adorable, but we mastered this technique 2,000 years ago. Like, that's his quote. Like, 4,000 years ago, Kung Fu mastered this. 2,000 years ago, we mastered this. The karate guys, Dopo Orochi, his son, Kazuya.
Dopo Orochi is fucking scary.
Dopo Orochi is speaking of, Fighter in the Wind and all that kind of stuff. Dopo Orochi is based on the Tiger Slayer. I forget his actual name, Masako.
When you put me onto that movie, let's go back 2013, 2014, was it, bro?
Yep.
When that movie came out, you put me onto that shit. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Like, to talk about philosophies, that dude has one that is the most impressive, frightening, and effective. Bro.
And like Dopo Orochi and him, I don't remember his name. He's based on an actual person who he karate chopped a bull and killed it. That's how strong this dude is. And Dopo Orochi is based on him, and there's this philosophy of like Kyokushin karate where you beat up your body to make it stronger, and Dopo has dedicated his life to this. And I think his son, it's his son versus Retsu. Him, he has this bullet punch, essentially. His whole thing is this bullet punch, and then Retsu says, we mastered this years ago. And just those clashes of ideologies is what keeps Baki so interesting. And I think that's why I love that show to a degree where I'm like, I'm going to start fucking training again. Every time I watch an episode, I'm like, I feel it in my bones.
You feel the fire. It's a fire in your chest that never goes away. And that's fine. Because I always feel like I came to the understanding that I feel like I may have been born out of a time that I might have died in a battle, but I definitely appreciate it on a level that isn't something that normal people have.
Yeah.
But the guy we were looking for, his born name was Choi Young Yui.
Yeah. He's Korean born, and then I think he was in Japan for a while.
Sosai Masutatsu Oyama.
Oyama, that's what it was. Yes, Oyama. I know it was O.
But yes, 1946
he is
to 1994. Holy shit.
Yeah. His whole thing was essentially he was the creator of Kyokushin, where, like I said, you beat up your body and make it stronger, and he's most famous for karate chopping a bull to kill it. And he just manhandled a bull.
Do you understand that sentence? God, he fucking
open hand chops a bull in the skull.
A bull.
And this is not a small bull. That is a big. There's pictures. This is a big ass bull.
I hit my hand on a door and it's not working for like a day and a half. You know what I mean?
I stubbed my toe and I want to cry.
I might explode.
Yeah. The day's over. The week is over. I shut down.
his philosophy was the hardened body, the Kyokushin hardened body.
Yeah.
You take impacts to strengthen it. To, I guess, can't like Thai. What is it? Muay Thai has the same idea with their shins.
Yep.
Where
they just kick banana trees. Yep.
Have you ever, bro? I bang my shin and I'm done.
Yep.
You know, like it's the same idea that these dudes take something that would ordinarily be like, I need 5 minutes, and they make it nothing at all.
Yeah.
Like
it's like walking for them.
Yeah, the Kyokushin style. Like, okay. Speaking of Kyokushin, the reason I knew about it was because of a mixed martial artist who based his entire style around Kyokushin karate.
Oh, really?
Georges St. Pierre is a belt rank Kyokushin stylist.
Okay.
I'm not sure, and a kickboxer and all that, but his core was Kyokushin.
Interesting.
And he became the middleweight champion.
Yeah.
Or welterweight. Forget what weight he was. Forgive me, but
one of those middle ones.
No, I think he was welterweight. I don't think he was ever middleweight champion. He tried. Anyway, so Georges St. Pierre is the Kyokushin style fighter.
Yeah.
And I watched a documentary where he was preparing for a fight, and you saw the training that he underwent, which had elements of the hardened body. He would take I think he takes these rolling pins and these little slapsticks or whatever they are, and they have like little barbs on them, little spikes, and he just impacts himself when he's training. He's throwing punches, impacting his shoulder. And I don't know if he does it anymore because he's old, but that's what he was doing fucking 15 years ago. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that was the philosophy of, I'm gonna get used to getting hit, and that's it.
Yeah.
So,
and there's something to that too, because like again, going back to, it's interesting because martial arts is almost like religion, where there's a lot of very, very similar ideas in things that classify themselves differently. And you know, I can't speak to them in any kind of educated way because that's not my thing. But martial arts is.
Yeah, I mean, we're speaking as fans.
Yeah, but like, what I mean by that is, you know, Kyokushin takes that hard body thing to a whole new level. A common depiction of Shaolin Kung Fu is the same thing. It's shoving your hands into the rice bowls to strengthen your fingers. It's beating the body up to strengthen it, to rebuild it stronger. And it's just interesting to see that kind of stuff happen in martial arts. And I think that's kind of like, again, religion isn't my thing. I'm not going to get into that. But like, I can kind of see other things through martial arts that way. And it, because it is an ideology too, right? Like it's a mindset, it's a set of values, a set of morals even, just like a religion would be for some people. And, you know, there's a book in particular that kind of set this straight for me, which is the Book of Five Rings.
Yes.
And that is, if I had to say I had some kind of like Bible type book, that would probably be it. I listen to that book every once in a while. It is a very motivational piece for me. And the entire point is it was written by a samurai named Musashi Miyamoto. The context to it is in the sense of battles, because he won something like 95 different samurai duels over the course of his life. And he wrote this book at the end of his life, kind of summarizing his philosophy and his ideology behind his techniques, which he kind of invented a two-sword fighting style that, you know, wasn't a thing before him.
I mean, his whole thing is, if you know about his legend, you know the impact he has.
Yeah,
it's the book itself is one of the most legendary things. Yeah, outside of his own legends. You know what I mean? Like,
and it talks about a lot of themes, like in particular. So it's broken into five sections. Right. Each one kind of deals with a different piece to the puzzle, I guess is the easiest way to put it. One of them is kind of existing without existing, is always be ready, but don't tense kind of thing. And it's very interesting to see from someone who practiced martial arts, is a huge fan of martial arts. It's interesting to kind of apply those ideologies to life, right? Like I've dealt with all kinds of things like anxiety, depression, stuff like that. You know, and I still deal with that stuff. But like the way martial arts has kind of helped with that is explained and kind of written into a tome in the Book of Five Rings. And it's kind of interesting to read that. and just see. And like that book's genuinely helped me through some tough times.
Legit.
Because of that kind of thing, and like that mentality of like, you know, exist without existing. You know, he says, unfocus your eyes so you can see everything. Never focus on one thing, but be ready for everything. And like, just things like that speak so deeply, and that's why I love this stuff, right? Like it hits on such a primal, spiritual, deep down, like not just like, oh, look at the cool guy do the cool punchy flippy kick thing.
No.
Like
it is one of the most personal things you can do for yourself.
Yeah.
Developing a connection to a philosophy is something that obviously everybody searches for. No, I don't think everybody finds.
No.
Truly. And this martial arts philosophy has guided you and this the same for me. It's and it's not to say that we're sitting here training in the high mountains of, you know, Tibet. We're just normal dudes who
But I totally wish I was.
You got the beard for it. I'm working on mine, but
I still like whenever I'm like, oh, I want to start training again. I want to find like the dude in the rusty shack in the back kind of thing. Like I don't want some like Tiger Schulman's karate. I want the janitor. Give me the janitor.
Miyagi.
Yeah.
You want Miyagi. It's a fantasy that's dope as hell. But I honestly will work the idea of being adaptable, being ready, and being observant. Even though I'm sometimes dense as hell, it is the idea that I try. You know, you try. You know, you're always gonna find setbacks, and you're always gonna be in a position where you're finding yourself where you're not wanting to be all the way, but adapt, find a way. There's always a way. It might not be easy, and it's always going to be shitty, because you're not going to have sunshine and rainbows, my friends. It's never going to be that every day. I apologize. I would love it for you. I would love it for me, but we live a life that is full of shit, and you find the best things in it. So
until I find the hermit that wants to take me to his shack and teach me ancient kung fu.
Yeah, old man Logan Miyagi. It'll be old man Logan Miyagi.
Oh my goodness. Yep.
That's your master. It is the epitome of your master.
That's what it is. And you know what? I blame these movies for that romanticizing of like the hill hermit teaching martial arts. I totally blame every one of these movies. And kind of to go back to what you were saying, like it's not always gonna be sunshine and rainbows. I'm into a show recently. I don't even know if I really told you about it because I'm only like 12 episodes in. Hajime no Ippo. Have you ever heard of this?
Oh yeah,
the boxing anime.
I know what it is.
Yeah. So it's a boxing anime. It's pretty old at this point. It's been going on for like 20 years. It's still going. There's like thousands of chapters at this point. And Makunouchi Ippo, the main character, he is not special. Like it's a shonen anime to the core, but it's one of those kind of like My Hero where it's not necessarily anything unique, anything super different. It just is the cleanest version of a shonen anime or manga, period. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Like it's one of those things where like, so Makunouchi Ippo is not special in any way. He doesn't have some kind of crazy power. He isn't gifted, anything like that. There's no like anime, there's anime nonsense, but it's not like Dragon Ball Z anime nonsense, you know? Not to the level of Baki, like one step down from Baki kind of thing. Like, you know, Baki so doesn't have the Dragon Ball nonsense, but
bursts of it, not like the entire fight.
It's the best way is characterizing boxing as opposed to making it super anime, you know.
I see. Gotcha.
Dragon Ball boxing.
All right. I'm
so it's stylized. It's stylized boxing, but it's not anime boxing. So Makunouchi Ippo is your average kid. Like he is not special in any way. The most special thing about him is he has better than average upper body strength because he helps his mom on her fishing boat. So he's carrying and lugging equipment around. So he just has, you know, he's got solid foundation and strength. And he gets beat up all the time by bullies. And one day he's rescued by his buddy. But not even his buddy at that point. It's just some dude passing by who's a boxer. And he does the super fast slip through all the bullies, and they do the like, oh god, and then he like clocks one or two of them. I want to say he's in his 20s because it's anime, but I think he's really like 17, but he looks like he's 20 something.
As usual.
Yeah. Like he lives by himself. He probably drinks. I think he drinks. So, you know, that kind of thing. Beating up some high schoolers.
Your hermit master.
Yeah, but Ippo joins this boxing gym because he teaches them. It's really interesting to see. Like he starts from zero, literally zero. The first thing he learns is a straight punch. How to turn his hips, how to do any of that. That's it. That's
Don't
the first
undersell
thing.
That. Yo,
no.
technique, and that's the most important thing of
Yeah.
practicing martial art. And it's one thing that I really appreciate the most when I see it in movies, when
Yeah.
I see it in anime.
Mhm.
Technique,
Yeah.
which is why I was talking about that lion tamer.
Yeah.
The way you move, the way you function for a straight punch
Yeah.
is so important.
Yeah.
You don't even understand. Most people who fight in streets and shit, you see the haymakers and it's just cringe.
Yeah.
And it's like you obviously understand that if you hit something, it's gonna hurt.
Yeah.
But if you hit something properly,
Yeah.
it hurts 10 times worse.
Yeah.
A straight punch isn't generated from your fist, it's generated from the fucking floor.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
You're pulling the energy from the earth to deliver that to the chin of whatever you're targeting.
And that's also why, like, I think you would actually really enjoy this show, because there's a level of understanding of boxing that is to an incredible degree.
Okay.
It is.
I might check it out with my father then.
Yeah, no, he'd probably like it too a lot, actually. So, like I said, Ippo starts at 0. The first thing he says, Takayama tells him, he's like, I'm only going to help you get better in boxing if you can. He hits a tree and leaves fall. He's like, catch 10 leaves. And the entire point to that was he has to keep his fist loose until the last possible second. Things like that. Like, you can't tense up. And so he keeps trying to grab him, tensing, and he can only grab 1 or 2. It'll fall out when he goes to grab the other one. It's that kind of thing. And then it gets to the point where it's basically broken down into 3 episode arcs. And same kind of thing. You have the build, you have the setup for the next one, and then you have the training for that kind of thing. But it's the first 2 episodes are basically slice of life, and they're entertaining. It's so good. And it's him learning some kind of new technique, like right now. So you've probably seen the clip of him doing the Dempsey roll, right?
It's my favorite clip. Yeah. That's...
So I'm not to that point yet. Right now, he literally just learned to switch to southpaw if he needs to.
Ooh.
So that's the technique. He literally was like, because his head was cut and they were going to call him on a TKO because he was bleeding everywhere. So he goes, oh, I can't keep this up and also swing, so I'm going to switch to southpaw to protect my head. So he puts it back there, and then he starts jabbing with his offhand, or his primary hand, I should say. And the second fight of the whole thing is he just learned an uppercut. That was the only difference, because he's fighting a counter puncher, and he learns an uppercut to block it, because the whole thing is the guy would dodge, sway out of the way, and just come in over top of him. So
during the fight, you're doing all the calculus. Like, he's sitting there, like, analyzing and figuring out what
that's kind of the thing. And like, there's the animation between the fights is kind of whatever, but they use perfectly the extra animation in the fights to explain exactly how it's going on. So at first he would do the twist, come back and do the big telegraphed uppercut. But it comes to a point, because he realized when he tried that, the kid would dodge out of the way, come down over top of him, counterpunch. So he learned mid-match that he can't do that. He steps in so he doesn't have any power and just chambers it real quick and does a quick one. It is so fantastic and
beautiful.
I'm telling you, you and your father are going to love it.
I'm going to check this out. Yeah, that's for sure.
That's for sure. So good. And it is the absolute, you were just saying, you love when they see techniques. This is literally the growth of technique. And that's what is making the show amazing. It's like 100-something episodes, and I don't even care. It's Hajime no Ippo. It's on VRV. It's probably on some other stuff. Okay. Yeah, it's on VRV. It's probably on like Crunchyroll and all that kind of stuff too. But they're doing their weird transition thing right now with Funimation. But it's on VRV. Yeah, that's where I've been watching it. And it is quite fantastic. And you just see, as someone who appreciates technique and martial arts in general, it really emphasizes that the creator knows what he's talking about. It's not just like, oh, this dude's a boxer. We're gonna do some boxing things, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I saw another boxing anime, which is
Megalobox.
Thank you. Yeah. And that's another type of one where it's basically the combination of Real Steel and boxing. So yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's done by the guy who did Ashita Nojo, which is like before even Ippo. I'm pretty sure. Like, that's an old boxing anime and manga.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, and it's another one that's a slice of life one, because that main character is going through the worst time of his life. Yeah. You know what I mean? So it's you think about boxing. You're getting those, like, Rocky. You know what I mean? You all the boxing stories go through the same kind of channels, but to know that that's the focus of it, the breakdown of the techniques, that's such the most important thing to me, bro. You don't, like, twisting a punch, bro. You twist a punch, you're twisting it from your hip,
Yep.
from your foot. You pivot, your hip turns, your elbow turns. You crank that in, and
Yep.
the I don't know how you learned to throw your straight, because you're Orthodox, right?
Yeah, so I did. It started as Tiger Schulman's, which back then was still Kempo. It was Kempo only. It wasn't mixed martial arts yet. That wasn't really a thing back in the 90s. That's mixed martial arts. It's a fairly new thing.
That came later.
Yeah,
I always said that I would have gotten into parkour if it was something that I knew about when I was a kid. I would have legit been all about that shit.
It was like Ed Parker Kempo kind of thing. It was really what I studied in, which is an Americanized style of Kempo. And yeah, so it was more of a traditional karate style straight punch than it was like a boxing straight punch. But Ed Parker was a boxer, so there was a lot of those techniques thrown into it.
I think that.
Yeah.
I mean, I learned boxing from the jump. So the punch is basically imagining throwing a lance
Yep.
from your hip. Imagine you're a Spartan warrior and there's a target that's 50 yards away. Even though he's 3 feet in front of you,
Yep.
you're aiming 50 yards away.
Yep.
And you want to punch with every force that's going to take.
Yep.
And every time, it's, man.
Yeah. And speaking of southpaw, I'm a southpaw. I always sparred southpaw. So that was also interesting to learn that that's not like a normal thing. Because like I'm I'm right hand dominate, but like, and I've always been a bigger dude. Like it just is what it is. Like even when I was younger, like I've always been like a more power based dude, but like I spar southpaw, which doesn't make any sense.
you feel, but that's the thing. You feel comfortable in the southpaw dominant stance.
Yep.
You know, and
because I would prefer personally when I was doing punches and things like that, it was roundhouses and side kicks as opposed to haymakers or big old straight punches. With my hands, it was more of tight hooks, short uppercuts, that kind of thing, and I felt more comfortable with my dominant hand forward doing that kind of stuff as opposed to the big swings from downtown kind of thing.
Do you prefer kicking?
Not always. Actually, not as much. If I do, it's more of like the kind of what you would see in UFC, like going for the legs, knees, that kind of stuff.
I mean, I
break down the foundation.
Just
kind of
a straight kick. Just a straight kick. Pop to the faces. Like Tekken 4, when they gave Kazuya and Jin those straight pop kicks, that would be an opening move for me. Like nobody really expects that. You know what I mean? Like you're not gonna get kicked in the face first thing. You're expecting a grab or something weird. No, just a pop kick and that's it. And then
my favorite of all time is always the step side kick. You just right to the hip, just straight line, just push them out right into the hip.
Yeah. Diving.
You just take a step, you just heel out, just tear them up. That was always my jam. That and just a big old roundhouse because I gotta wait to throw around. But that was the thing. Like I would rather put that energy into a kick when I would throw my weight around than a punch. Because I always thought it was more effective. So that was
definitely.
Like that was my thing when I was training. And then more recently, I'm actually trying to get into martial arts again because, I've been on this kick, but it's also, again, ingrained in my blood and soul at this point. And I'm honestly leaning towards Wing Chun. There's a couple schools around here that I'm very interested in. And, a lot of it, I think most people kind of got woken up to Wing Chun with Donnie Yen's movies, Ip Man, which is fine. And I mean, Bruce Lee started it too. Like he was the one who really popularized Jeet Kune Do, which has its basis in Wing Chun. Ip Man's son was the one who trained Bruce Lee. But I think it was really like that movie that put it on the map, the Ip Man one. And, it's interesting because it's a really cool combination of power and speed to me.
And the control of yourself, because you're not over here bouncing, you're not worried about controlling your energy levels. You're sitting here finding a center and being ready. And that's beautiful.
And that's beautiful. And again, it kind of goes back to the kicking thing. Like my preference of kicks is basically waist and below. And that's essentially what it comes down to, right? Like it's kicking out knees, it's kicking out hips.
Straight little kicks to break the stature of your target. Exactly. And it's
to control the space.
The thing about the Wing Chun is all about just controlling this zone. Your zone is done. Which weirdly comes back to my preference in fighting game characters. I'm gonna zone you close and you're mine.
I'm gonna
Does Wing Chun have many grabs?
Yeah.
I think they have like a lot of head grabs for punches, right?
I think they do clinches and things like that, but
Clenching, like the
yeah,
plum. Oh, the plum is a dangerous technique.
yeah.
I do
And then
like the
there's the
plum
sticky
too.
hands, that kind of stuff. So
Sticky hands.
yeah.
Muay Thai is one of my favorite fighting styles. Tony Jaa inspired
Hmm.
a lot of, the popularized one, a lot
Yeah.
of the characters that we see in games now. Joe Higashi, you know what I mean? Joe Higashi was one of the first characters I got put on in
Hmm.
the King of Fighters
Yep.
genre. Um,
He's
and I
still
remember
the most toxic motherfucker ever. So
really that tiger kick is that or right tiger knee or whatever he calls it. Whatever it
it's the
is,
tiger
that
knee. I
shit.
don't know what it's called,
Tiger
but
knee.
it's the tiger knee.
Yeah.
He is that, and then he has the
That
flying straight kick.
yeah.
That thing's
But it
terrifying.
was my favorite is the billion punches that
The
rush
grab
punch.
that's just out there forever.
Yeah. But that he Tony Jaa bringing the dynamic shit to Muay Thai was such a revelation to me because I realized how powerful that style of kick was and
Yeah.
how much the UFC fighters were using it. I then realized that those leg kicks
Hmm.
are devastating.
Yep.
You do not have a posture if you do not have your legs.
Nope. Nope. It is
And
the basis for everything. It is the basis of your power. It is the basis of standing, quite literally.
quite literally,
It's everything.
like
Yeah.
I and it's an impressive thing to see how how they base their entire martial art about dismantling you
Yeah.
completely
Yeah.
through elbows and oh my god, like
Yeah.
they're using the most vicious weapons and in such vicious ways. Tony Jaa's movies show you that it can be flashy, it can be dope as shit.
Yeah.
But if you ever watch a martial arts, I mean a Muay Thai competition,
Hmm.
that's violent. That's
Yeah.
power beyond you could imagine, bro.
Yeah.
Like,
And I'm surprised too, and this is someone who very passively watches like UFC and combat sports and all that kind of stuff. But I'm surprised I don't see more of like Krav Maga, things that are designed specifically for self-defense and things like that. Which I guess is the point. It's not necessarily aggression; it's defense and neutralization kind of thing.
because of what you said earlier, how mixed martial art is basically its own style now.
Mhm.
I think adapting things like Krav Maga, like there was a fighter a couple years ago, Lyoto Machida.
Mhm.
He was strictly karate growing up, and he used the karate to heavily, he was karate dominant
Mhm.
in his mixed martial arts. That's how I want to word it. But
Okay.
it got him to the point where he was a champion. He was a champion, and he defended it. Then he was defeated,
Mhm.
and then people figured out his technique, and he was done.
Yeah.
So the subtle things like a Krav Maga, like the one thing that nobody uses that would be the most effective is the jab.
Yeah.
Your stupid little jab. The
Yep.
mixed martial artists, if they were to adapt a jab into their shit and be like aces at it, they would knock out
Yeah.
80%
I mean, it's
of their opponents.
it's spacing, it's chipping away. There's so many utilities to it. Just from a basic like, whoop. You know?
But think of it, like you're coming in and wait, what?
Exactly. Yeah. Also, when it comes to that kind of thing, I think one of the dumbest arguments ever, and by dumb I mean it's fun to be like, yeah, okay, but like one of the dumbest arguments ever to me will always be, what's the better martial art? I think
It's a pointless one. It's
pointless because there's so many variables to all of it. It's
Exactly.
going to depend on an individual, like any variable. So that's like saying which one of us is better. I mean, it's me, but that's besides the point.
Yeah, I mean that's fine, but it's just today.
But
I'm off my shit. But
jokes
you're fine. You'll
aside,
take
you
it
know what
too.
I mean? Like that's the point. Like that's a moot argument. Like we're two completely different people with two completely different senses of everything, and
Exactly.
it's literally apples and oranges. You can't make that kind of argument in any reasonable way, in my opinion.
And it always boils down to the same thing. What do all martial arts share?
Yeah.
The principles, the philosophies. Be better at doing what you're doing by doing it every day, and be good at it by doing it every day.
Yeah.
Technique.
It's
master it.
like UFC and all that stuff is not a what's the better martial art. It's who's the better fighter.
Who's better on, because there is no such thing. The mixed martial arts math does not exist. If you're sitting here basing on, oh, he knocked out XYZ because he's a champ, that's fine. But on the day, Glass Joe can knock out John Jones. You know what I mean? It takes that 1 second, that one technique, that one moment.
Yep.
Done.
And I think
and maybe not.
An amazing real world example of this is the first UFC with Royce Gracie.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like,
Let's go into that.
he's the smallest dude in the competition up against things like a 400-pound sumo wrestler or some nonsense like that.
Yup.
And
you're seeing this scrawny little guy
on paper. Everyone, including the pancration fighters, the mixed martial arts, the kickboxers, they should have all destroyed him. But because he has a technique that wasn't popularized at the time, and two, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, basis in judo and Japanese jiu-jitsu, but it was adapted by the Gracie family to its own thing. This dude took the competition because it had nothing to do with styles at the time and things like that. He just was trained in a way that could dismantle these particular opponents.
UFC has a couple moments throughout their history where you were able to see the evolution of the sport in the moment.
Yeah.
And there's a couple examples I can think of. But Royce winning the tournaments in the way that he did, you heard the change in the crowd. You heard them go boo and he's such a shitty.
Yeah, why is he just holding them?
Absolutely crazy because of how he was winning. He was beating these guys with holds, with grabs, with chokes, and everything that nobody had ever come across or knew how to defend against. Because this is the idea behind it too. There's techniques that you can use to win against that guy too, and and that's what it took. It took evolving the entire sport from just brutes who were specialized in one technique,
strikers,
smashing each other's faces in Mortal Kombat style, to this established rules where now we're going to adapt your style and your style, and we're going to create this thing. And you couldn't have had that without him. And fast forward a couple of years, you have the competition that UFC held, the Tough Enough or whatever it was called, Ultimate Fighter, and the very first set of winners were Stephen Bonner and Forrest Griffin. So as popular as UFC was becoming, when this show was showing, they fought. And mind you, their techniques were as amateur as you can imagine. They were just hopefuls who were put in this moment where they had a chance to shine. But the passion behind that fight, they went 5 rounds nonstop. Nonstop, coming after each other all the time, giving each other their best shots, showing all the techniques that they've mastered to defeat the other guy. And they went the entire distance. As that fight was happening, I was watching it and I was telling people, you gotta see this. Oh my God, you gotta see this. And it blew up, bro. It blew up the UFC's popularity because of that fight. And they gave them both contracts. You know what I mean? It became okay fighters, but the idea is the passion that they had. The passion behind that fight was everything. Everything.
And it was, I can think of, another manga example, which I haven't even read this one, but I know of it. It's on the list because it's only 8 volumes right now. That's kind of that. It's this idea of taking a character who the main character, it's called Teppu. I don't know if you've heard of this.
Okay.
Have you heard of this manga?
I'm familiar with it.
So it's about a bunch of female martial artists, and the main character is ruthless. She is, not to put a shonen archetype to it, but she's the Sasuke. Like, she can see a move a couple times and she can perfect it and master it. And, she doesn't need it any more than that, really.
She looks violent.
Yes. Whoa. And that's the thing too. She is very violent, and it comes back to her character where, there's ideas of like using martial arts to cope with, abusive relationships and just bad relationships in general. And because of that, because she's always been the best, she has become brutal and violent at it. Until she meets the secondary character. I think her name is Natsuo. That might be the main character.
Ishido.
Who is a
Yuzuko Moatari?
Yuzuko. That's the secondary one. So she is a grappler born in Japan who grew up in Brazil getting her ass beat, but she had to work at it to become a submissive grappler. She learned Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and the first time they spar, she beats Natsuo. or it gets
Nice.
pretty close to it. And so this person who has always been the best at everything has this cute, bubbly girl who just puts her in like a chokehold and
Yeah,
goes, "What the
exactly.
hell?" You know what I mean? Like it's that
That's
kind of
dope.
thing. And
I need to see this now.
the entire
Yeah.
story, there's no manga or there's no anime or anything, unfortunately, but
Okay,
there is an
that's fine.
8-volume manga that doesn't finish, unfortunately, either. But it's 8 volumes. I don't know if it's been officially translated, but I'm sure you can find it. And it essentially turns into this, this main character, this super violent, good at everything, has her world kind of rocked because everything is sort of handed to her. And then this girl who kind of came and did whatever just messes her
That's
up.
cool as shit.
And then it turns into like a point where the main character at one point, she has a friend who she beat in a karate competition because her brother was humiliated by her, and like her friend and her brother fought, the brother lost, and she got revenge essentially. And then that put a strain on her and her brother's relationship because her brother was embarrassed that she stuck up for her. Because they're a bunch of high school kids, and they don't, that whole thing.
Yeah, it's still a high school drama.
Yeah, but and eventually the friend and the main character fight, and it's just super intense. Apparently, like I said, I haven't read it, but the way that they draw the manga, if you look up some panels, you'll see there's, as opposed to big Baki style animation lines like the swings of kicks and things like that, you'll see a bunch of little ones for submission holds, stuff like that, where you'll see Yuzuko like kick off the ground, swing her leg around, and put someone in a leg bar kind of thing.
I'm seeing there's a bunch of characters here that use karate.
Yep, there's all kinds of different martial arts and stuff.
MMA.
Yep, and it's very cool to see this sort of like, it turns into just two people trying to be the best that they can, kind of going into it. They come from very different worlds, very different philosophies, and those clash throughout the manga. So that is definitely high on my list too. I really want to read that. It looks really cool.
I mean, it's another realm that I haven't really dove into is manga. That sports manga and fighting in general has always been my thing. But I mean, like, it's just manga to hearing about this sounds dope, and I would have never known. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's definitely a realm that I want to discover more of.
This style of manga, like this martial arts, let's call it scientific martial arts manga.
Okay.
Like that kind of thing. Like Baki, again, it gets a little ridiculous, but it is rooted in actual love of fighting and techniques and things like that. And there's a theory behind them that are, for every demon back muscle, there's also, an actual karate technique in there. You know what I mean? Like that kind of thing. Yeah. But, there's Ippo, like I was saying, that's highly technical, little stylized, but highly technical. Another example of that is one of the characters uses they call it the hanged man style, which is just a flicker stance. But he can, like, it seems like his arm extends essentially because he's flicking it so fast. He's doing the jab so fast, but he kind of swings it back and forth, and then he does a flicker stance. So they call him the hanged man.
Flicker stance is a dangerous technique. It's the Philadelphia defense, and like
the Philly shell.
The Philly shell which is made popular by a very, we'll just leave it as heavily discussed guy, Mayweather. Mayweather has a very discussed lifestyle and career path, but ultimately what we can attribute to him is the revolution or the evolution of the Dempsey roll into the Philadelphia shell. The Dempsey roll is a very tanky, controlled rolling motion where you use your shoulders and your muscles to crank a punch and to obviously recoil and be able to take hits.
Yep.
Mayweather's defensive posture is to use your shoulder to cover I guess since I'm right-handed, it would be my left. But to use your shoulder to cover the end of your chin while being able to guard your body with your arm and keeping your other hand here to defend the other side of your chin. Beautiful defensive posture that makes him one of the hardest fighters to ever hit, which basically attributed to his career. And we'll leave it at that. But I love the idea to have the defensive capability while giving the offense out. It's something that I love a lot. I don't play tank characters, but I like the idea behind it.
Yeah, I love the idea of like a peekaboo kind of thing, and that ends up being Ebo's like main style. He's a peekaboo fighter. He's an in fighter.
Yeah.
You know, and like you were saying with the density roll, but literally the episodes I'm in now, they're teaching him to peekaboo by having him bite his gloves, so to keep his hands under his chin.
That's Tyson. Tyson was doing that while he was training with, oh my God, Carmen? I forget his name. But anyway.
So, yeah, to essentially to make sure he kept his hands up, because his most recent fight, his, you know, where he got the eye cut I was telling you about, that started bleeding, his guard wasn't up to snuff, as opposed to his punches, which had the power, but he was still getting hit too much. So they're teaching him peekaboo so that he can keep the power and the shell. Because again, he's very strong upper body strength. So that's just
dope. Yeah. I mean, that's Tyson. Tyson was, when you think about it, I don't know. I know I'm dating myself, but Tyson, when I was a kid, was the guy.
Yeah.
And the reason was he had the mixture of, I guess, Ippo. He was this short dude who had tank-like power.
Yeah.
He had a cannon of a punch.
Yep.
And this technique where he would just block his face, and that was it. And he would get 2 punches, and they were so explosive that Kazuya style. You know what I mean? Kazuya is a good allegory for him, because it literally took only a few punches to down anybody. And even now, bro, like I still think that he could put anybody on their ass.
Oh yeah.
But it's
trying to fight
just
people on airplanes and stuff now. Like
yeah, he's an idiot. But I mean, the fight that he had a couple years ago with the other guy, Roy Jones Jr., that was hilarious. But was it him? I forget who it was. Anyway,
I don't watch any of that stuff anymore.
Long story short, he has that technique, and that technique was developed from his trainer, who didn't like that he sucked at defending himself. So he taught him to keep his face buried in his gloves. That's beautiful.
And that's the kind of love I'm talking about, like with Ippo and like Baki and things like that. When you have someone who genuinely loves martial arts and understands martial arts at a micro level like that, right? Like you're gonna see that come through, and that's the kind of stuff that really speaks to me, because I love that stuff at that level. You know what I mean? Like you find like a kindred spirit in these creators that make these things like Baki and Ippo and all that kind of stuff, and it's just fan base. And a fan base, yeah. Like, and then you're gonna, find a whole bunch of people that may not even know what that is, and then that gets them into the martial arts and stuff like that. And like, this is why, like, I'm watching all these shows now, and I'm like, man, I really want to train again, because that's what it is. It's just in your soul and in your blood, and once it gets in there, it's not going anywhere.
I can't express that any better. Like, it's a part of me, and it really dawned on me the other day how it's still a consistent thing. Toku. We love Toku. It's kind of just something that superseded the relevance or the immediate relevance. But when I thought about it, dude, Toku is the fighting. We watched karate.
Literally karate bugmen.
Karate bugmen doing their thing. And it's when you see the choreo, and we appreciated the choreography of the Ultraman series. You know what I mean? Like, it's still the same thing where we're watching martial arts carried out in suits. You know what I mean? I love this shit. We can't.
We always talk about it on the show. It's like, I always give the choreography crap, or like that's really the first thing I notice, and like it's because of everything we just talked about for the last hour and a half. Like it's so ingrained. Like it's the first thing I see. It's the first thing, like I could give 2 flying farts, honestly, if someone is going through an existential crisis. Like I have plenty of those every single day. I don't care, I mean, it makes it entertaining, but and you got to hold my interest between the fights. But like if your fights are good, I'm going to forgive a lot of other stuff.
Like I get it. You're good. Your sandwich is made, but you're good. I love that we can always come back to the same ideas and the same philosophies, because no matter what, the through line throughout this whole conversation is that even though we might have forgotten or at least put back the passion for martial arts, the philosophy itself has always been part of our lives and always carried us through. The Art of War for me, the Book of Five Rings for you. So if I'm gonna say to take away anything from this, don't think of martial arts as strictly a Chinese thing or anything like that. It is a world philosophy for anybody who wants to express themselves in a physical way or a spiritual way that they can't really find anywhere else.
Yeah. It's like I said it before, it's a universal language. It doesn't care where you come from. It doesn't care where you're going. It doesn't care who you are. It is a universal language that everyone understands. And there's a beauty in that. You know what I mean? Like it's martial arts are fucking great.
I'm gonna go watch like every martial arts.
I'm gonna go do some push-ups or something. I'm getting heated.
I mean, don't get crazy now. Don't get crazy.
I'm gonna find you, Carl. You went to that mountain, man. I swear. He just said he
found this hermit. I don't know what happened. It's just a homeless guy. I don't know.
Your hermit was gonna be Henry Cavill.
Yeah.
And just like it's The Witcher. That's your
arm cocking the whole time. That's my martial art.
I love it.
Yeah. I think that's a great place to stop, honestly. Like that's such a good note because that's the energy we're going for here. Yeah, if you want to check out that video we were talking about, it's now on YouTube. Kaiju Carl on YouTube. It's how to get into fighting games. I touch on this stuff briefly, but this will kind of be like a supplemental to that. And there might be a whole other video coming on it. We'll see. I don't know yet. So
it's a conversation that can be perpetually generated because there's always an aspect that we can get into. Like we can go on for hours if we want to. But ultimately, I love that we're here with it, and I can't wait. This is gonna be dope. So to contrast you can catch all my stuff at 6echoes.se@gmail.com. Send me all your creepypasta stuff. To contrast this, I do horror stuff. I like spoopy, so send me spoopy and we'll do the spoopy.
Yeah. And our ultimate final form is a spoopy fighting thing.
That's
it's death trance. That's what it is.
We can do a fusion. That'll be dope, man.
Oh my goodness. Yep. You can follow me on all the social medias at Kaiju Carl. This is Kaiju Carl's Coffee Corner. I appreciate you guys for listening. Have a good week. Have a good whenever the next episode comes out.
Yeah.
Bye.